Alright, look, I'm just setting up, making sure that all of my bits and pieces are working correctly before I do this live stream. So just make yourself comfortable, grab a drink, grab some food, and I'll go from there. The sound check is good, sounds like the sound's coming through fine. And if there are any issues, you just let me know, and we'll go from there. We'll see how it all works out. Okay, alright, I'll pull that out. Alright, so as usual with my live streams, as a general rule, what I tend to do is I present everything first, and then I let people have a discussion with me. By all means, throw stuff up in the chat as we go. I'm going to put the start time, if you're rewatching this later on, I'm going to put the start time down in the description so you don't have to deal with the sound check in the starting section. So don't worry about that. You can avoid all that by just going and clicking on the description. I will answer questions. I will chat with you near the end. But by all means, put up your comments and what you want to say about the whole topic of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica as we go, and I'll come back to that stuff. Otherwise, if there's nothing said, then I will probably just leave. Okay, so let us get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today we're going to talk about the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. And there's a really good reason why I put a great huge question mark and an exclamation mark beside it. Because, of course, right now a lot of people don't quite know what to make of this. But like everything, right, you know, the scene that I've put up for you, a dungeon master. The trick is to let the players win, but never let them know that you let them do that. And what Wizards of the Coast is actually doing is they're leading you in a direction which they feel you will enjoy. You just don't know about it yet. You probably will figure it out later on, should you give it a chance. So this particular book is going to be released fairly shortly. It is obviously a Dungeons and Dragons book, and it's going to be coming out on the 20th of November 2018, which is pretty close to an awful lot of other publications that they are releasing, which is kind of like a big surprise for a lot of people and going to be quite expensive. And so yes, you should be able to pick it up at your local game stores, from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, the Book Depository, all those locations that you would normally purchase them from. It will probably have an earlier release for your local game stores compared to the 20th of November, but the official release date is the 20th of November 2018. And this is, well, my gosh, it's actually a settings book. Of all things to consider, they're releasing a settings book for Dungeons and Dragons. But it's not the settings book that a lot of people were expecting or hoping for. So there's a lot of people who are either confused, frustrated, angry. Some will be delighted. Others will be unsure what to make of it. So there's a lot of different feelings. You know, I think shock and annoyance and surprise and confusion are all perfectly normal. What I'm hoping is that during this live stream, I will be able to settle some of your fears about this particular release, because I don't know if you've noticed, but my channel, if you've been watching it for a while, I use a lot of Magic the Gathering art, but I don't actually play Magic the Gathering, the card game. And the Guildmaster's Guide, or Ravnica, is from Magic the Gathering. It's not an official Dungeons and Dragons campaign that we have seen in the past. This is actually something new. Not new if you're a Magic player, but new if you're playing something like Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so what I really wanted to focus on is try to alleviate a lot of people's concerns about the fact that they are dealing with something they didn't ask for. Nobody asked for this. Nobody really said, look, give me this. And suddenly they wind up with something they did not expect. But it is a new Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting. It's literally a new one for us. Nobody's ever played Dungeons and Dragons in this unless they homebrewed it and created it themselves. And that's actually a really good thing. Okay, you're not getting recycled material now. You're actually getting something completely new that has never been printed and released for Dungeons and Dragons. You are going to get to explore a totally new world. This is a complete world in itself. Okay, and not only is it a complete world that you've never been in before, unless of course you've read the books for Magic the Gathering or the story, the lore behind it and played the game, this is a really strange world in that it's a bit like the Star Wars Coruscant. It's a worldwide cityscape, literally covers the entire world, and I guess Taking 20, Cody did a great job of explaining Magic the Gathering and how it all works. Certainly did a better job than I could possibly do in a live stream. And there are other videos out there that explain it a bit pretty well as well. I believe Nate over at WAS20 did a video explaining a little bit about Magic the Gathering and the world of Ravnica. I personally don't know very much about Ravnica, but I use the artwork and I see the benefits of exploring a world like that and all the other worlds that are related to Magic the Gathering. And I want to make that abundantly clear to people so that you don't freak out too much by providing you with a bit of artwork, because I've been collecting the artwork for the past few months for other videos which I may or may not be able to do now based on certain circumstances, but at least I can do it for this particular video or live stream. And that is, you are now entering a cosmopolitan fantasy world where you're dealing with city dynamics, where you're not out in the whoops, you're not out in the wilderness, you're not in necessarily a dungeon. There are multiple levels to the city world of Ravnica. So that is one of the benefits to it, is that you're going to get to explore and deal with a totally different aspect. That means you can't just do anything you like in Ravnica, because there are going to be guards, there is a legal system, there is a military force, there is a justice system in place. All of that is taking place within this world. And on top of that, you get to deal with some of the more interesting aspects of this world, and that is, would you believe it, bustling markets where you can buy stuff. So all of that gold that you've been stashing for who knows how long, that you can never find anything to sort of use it on, you got a place to now go and spend it. Does that mean that you're going to get an opportunity to buy magic items of a common variety or uncommon variety? Who knows? That'll really be up to the Dungeon Master who's using this particular book. But I suspect that they will tie that into the economics of the world. Now, that's speculation on my part, but I still think it's quite likely that they will tie that into the world, so you have somewhere to spend your gold. Another aspect to Ravnica is it is full of shadowy back alleys where you can do your dealings, your secret spying, your passing of information, all of the things that you would expect from a political drama or story or a spy setting. All of those things are all tied up, and all of these things are going to be taking place behind the scenes, behind closed doors, in places people don't normally travel. So there's another aspect to it, and I guess this is probably more akin to what we're used to, which is your dungeon location. Okay, the lower sections of Ravnica are going to be much more like your general dungeon location as such. Alright, now the other thing I wanted to say is that it's complicated, this city. Okay, there's 10 guilds of influence. Now, I'm not going to explain all the different guilds. You can jump on and take a look at what Cody did. You probably already have. But there are plenty of videos out there that explain the guilds of Ravnica. And they all have a part to play in keeping the balance within the city world. They also don't like each other very much. So there's plenty of opportunity for conflict. And this is going to present your players with an opportunity to pick one of these guilds. Really, you've got to pick a side. Standing between these guilds could probably mean that you won't have the support you need. That's obviously completely up to how the Dungeon Master wants to run it, but I would suspect that they are going to make this, they're going to bake this concept of the guilds very much into the setting book itself. That means there's got to be trouble, and there's going to be lots of trouble. That means crime syndicates to foil or join. That means potentially crime syndicates that you could might have to try and avoid completely. You don't have to join them, you don't have to foil them, and maybe you just need to avoid them. There's just too much trouble. And then some of them not quite as dark as the image that I have presented to you, but certainly some are extremely dark and dangerous to be involved with. Next, scientific institutes to study with. Now, does that mean you're going to get a new class like the Artificer, where you get to merge machine and magic together? We don't know yet. I don't think anybody does. I think it's highly likely that they will try to introduce something like the Artificer somewhere. Maybe it's this book, maybe it's somewhere else, maybe it'll be a PDF, but it's so much tied into the very nature of Magic the Gathering and Ravnica that not having some sort of way of reflecting that is going to be quite odd, because you don't have all of the tools available at present with the books that have been released to be able to delve into the concept of merging science, machine and magic. And so that's going to probably have to play some part in some way, otherwise it's not really going to make much sense. Okay, next, church hierarchies that probably want to control your belief system. Or is that church is temples, churches, temples that want to walk around the city? Now literally that there is a building that you're seeing. Okay, this is a location that goes for a wander. This is how crazy the world of Ravnica is. It is unlike anything that you guys have had to deal with before, and the players are probably going to have a ball. Even if you don't necessarily like it, it's certainly very creative. Okay, alright. Next, military forces. There are a set of military forces and organisations that run a military that will probably try to protect the system in place, or possibly take your rights away from you, or impose their system upon you. However you see it, there is going to be a military force of some kind. That means these guys you're going to have to be very careful of, because you won't be able to go running riots. You can't just do anything and anywhere. You can't just fire off your fireball or your magic anywhere you like, because trouble is going to come, and the chances are that the guards are going to be tough. They're probably not going to be a pushover. Of course, there's always something to balance all of that, right? And that is the justice system, the court system, to keep the peace, or to take your rights and away from you, or potentially make sure that they are set in place. It doesn't matter how you see it, but this is an example of the kind of artwork and systems in place. Yes, literally, there's a judge. Okay, so that's how crazy this world is. That means giant creatures and monsters and beings, things that we don't really see until high level, yet it's going to be quite a normal thing even if you're playing at low level. That means the buzzing swarms of people and creatures and monsters and other aspects of the world. Rampaging gangs. You're definitely going to be seeing quite a few rampaging gangs. It's up to you whether you stop, avoid them, or join them. Power, wealth, influence is all part of Ravnica. Okay, and there's also, because of all of the different guilds, there's definitely going to be war. And I would imagine that this particular book is going to set it up so that you can have some sort of major conflict or small conflicts depending on what you want. And there is a web of war that's been going on. Look, the image here is just one of the images that I pulled off, but there are many images that relate to the wars that take on a life of their own and spread within Ravnica. So plenty of fun to be had. So if you're worried about, I'm not going to get to fight anything, and it's always going to be about role play and political maneuvering and stuff like that. That's not necessarily the case. I think you're going to find there's going to be plenty of space for everything. Okay, and of course, let's move on to the Planeswalkers. Now, these are the individuals who travel from world to world. Ravnica is just one of them, and no doubt they'll have a part to play in this world as well. And it is also possible that the players might find themselves being a Planeswalker of some kind themselves. I mean, Ravnica is just one of many worlds within the Magic the Gathering world itself, or franchise itself. So that means that planar travel is probably going to be quite easy. If not easy, certainly baked in and tied in as a possibility at some point. Doesn't sound quite so bad now when you think about it, really. Okay, so let's get to the gist of it. We know enough about Ravnica now, hopefully, to give you an idea. Does this mean that they are trying to take Magic the Gathering and join it with the D&D worlds? Well, they're certainly using it as an economic basis to try to pull the players who play Magic the Gathering to Dungeons and Dragons. I have no doubt that Wizards of the Coast would like everybody to play Magic the Gathering, the card game, and Dungeons and Dragons. And because Magic the Gathering was based on Dungeons and Dragons, I think you need to understand that they are probably wanting to still base everything in the culture that existed for Dungeons and Dragons, the settings, the world, the way we play the game. They probably still want to keep that, because remember, they based Magic the Gathering on Dungeons and Dragons. It's not the other way around. Now, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I think it's probably going to wind up being a smart move. It will probably upset a few people, and there'll be more than a few individuals who will ignore this completely and pass it off as being just a bump in the road and a book they wouldn't bother with. And I can totally understand that. Part of the problem with the concept of using Magic the Gathering as a jumping point, particularly for the first setting book, is that's not what people wanted. But if they didn't do it this way, the chances are that the interest in this particular setting book would be very minimal. We've had so few releases that this is the prime time. You know, you take what you can get, right, when you get so little. And this is probably why they have released the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica first, before releasing anything else. Now, why is there likely to be conflict within Ravnica? Well, because the individual who is the guild pact ties them all together to make sure that they actually work together and don't fight amongst themselves. He's a Planeswalker, and he's been traveling all over the place. So he hasn't been in Ravnica. So while the guild pact is sort of, you know, off running around doing his own thing, it's going to mean a lot of political conflict. And they're going to provide you, from what I've seen so far and heard, they're going to provide you with a Dungeon Master toolkit, a toolbox. And it's quite clear to me that that's going to be the case, simply because they have also decided to release a dice set, which they've been doing for pretty much everything. But that's not the key factor. They're going to release a Ravnica map pack. I would expect to see more than a few different types of maps of Ravnica within the book and in the book itself, but also as released, published glossy maps, things that you can use at your table, whether that be a world map, and I suspect they will give you a world map, and probably a section or map that you can use sort of as an example of some of the locations you could play in. That's what I would expect. I think that's quite likely. I think it's going to be more like Curse of Strahd, where you get a map that gives you the world itself, and then on the other side it gives you lots of little locations that would sit within that world that are sort of representative of the different districts. And they've already talked about this. They've already said, look, we're going to detail the 10th district, and that is what I think they will focus on. They'll focus on that particular aspect of it. That means you've got to try to balance magic and machine and politics. That probably definitely means you're going to wind up with new character options. You're going to have to join a guild. You get to choose a guild. Okay, this means an adventure building framework and blocks for the Dungeon Master. Now, Magic the Gathering gets a much bigger budget for their art, so expect some pretty fantastic art from now on, I would imagine. That means gigantic monsters. I've already shown you a couple of images, but gigantic monsters running amok in the city is probably going to be something that is not necessarily commonplace, but something you can certainly build into your campaign and your adventure world. Now, the guilds, when you join a guild, it's going to replace your background mechanically. They've already stated this. They've already said that you are going to get adventure hooks that are based off the players' guilds that they have joined. You're going to pick, apparently you pick 2. I thought it would have been just 1, but most of the guilds have sort of like two focuses of magic, now, which I'll talk about in a second. So expect adventure hooks, expect adventure plots based on what guild the characters or players select for their character. This is probably going to pull in a lot of people. I would expect to see something like some of the optional races available. There's a good possibility we'll see something like angels being playable as a race. Now, this is speculation, but I think it's quite likely. Guaranteed we're going to see goblins. They've already got goblins as a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters, so bringing that across, I think that's quite likely. We won't necessarily see something like the Krasis, which is sort of like mutant monsters, but it might be an option to play. You never know. I suspect it's more likely going to be something that you'll have to deal with in the city as it runs riot and causes all sorts of strife, which is always going to be a lot of fun anyway. Okay, undead. Playable race. I think it's highly likely that playing an undead is going to be a playable race. I know that sounds just crazy and overpowered. I don't think necessarily a zombie, because there's lots of zombies in Ravnica, but they're lower level sort of undead. They sort of do the menial stuff. They fight the wars. They feed the population. They are also sort of do all the menial stuff that most people don't want to. They're like the slaves, the workers, the people. They do all the stuff that nobody else really wants to do. And there are plenty of indications that it is going to be an option for a playable race, just because some of the guilds are built completely around this. Their key figures have passed on to the afterlife. But even so, they are still around. So I think that's definitely a possibility. There is also another race called the Veldican. Is it Veldican? Veldican. Basically a purple humanoid of some kind. They have an affinity to sort of machines and magic and stuff like that, but build it how you wish it. Also the Weirds. These are sort of like elemental creatures or beings. So look, we've already got the Genocide, so why not this? I think this is highly likely. I think that's definitely likely to be part and parcel of the whole package. And of course, then we've got magic. Now, magic's always a big part of any world that you explore, and apparently there are 5 different colours that focus on magic, and white being life and lore, blue is magic and engineering and water, black is death and undeath, so that seems interesting. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that black is bad. Green is nature, red is fire and fury, and hey, all of this sounds to me to be pretty cool. Am I the sort of dungeon master who would like to run a game in a city? I'm not so much that sort of person, but I would love to have the tools available to wreck a city. That certainly sounds like an awful lot of fun to me. And if I can chuck a few ginormous monsters in there, put in some political intrigue as well to make things slightly more complicated, then it sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, all right, let's get down to the gist of it right here. This is where I think the key point needs to be understood. Is Wizards of the Coast going to take your favorite hobby and are they going to insert it, or are they taking Magic the Gathering and inserting it into the world of Dungeons and Dragons? Absolutely. We'd asked for planar travel, whether it be the astral planes or whether it be Spelljammer or anything like that. I think absolutely they are going to incorporate Ravnica into the very mythos and world of the planes. Whether that be the astral planes, the positive planes, it doesn't matter. I think you're going to see more and more of the Magic the Gathering worlds incorporated into Dungeons and Dragons. And you don't need to worry about it, because if you don't like it, you can just ignore it and leave it out. But I certainly think it's going to happen. Now, I've played Dungeons and Dragons for a while, and there are, amongst my friends, and I have quite a few people who play Dungeons and Dragons in New Zealand, and not that many actually play Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. What I found interesting is when I posted that comment on YouTube, the number of people who came back and said, look, Fred, well, not Fred, because I didn't call myself Fred. Oh, HowtoDandD, remember, HowtoDandD. The response was, I play Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, but I wouldn't necessarily want to play my Dungeons and Dragons game in Ravnica or a Magic the Gathering world. Although some were like, yes, I would. So I think it's definitely going to be baked in. And this is going to be part of a lot of changes, which I think I'm going to talk about in future videos, but not today, because that would be inappropriate, since the focus needs to be on Ravnica and Dungeons and Dragons and how that's going to play out. So, sounds like a lot of fun to me. Personally, I think it's going to be a good move, even if it doesn't seem like it initially. I think it's going to be hard for people to warm up to the idea of having another world included into their Dungeons and Dragons settings. But it's coming. It's on its way. And in November, we'll know whether it's a good product or a bad product. But remember, this is the testing ground for what they do with the other settings. They're not going to muck around with the established ones. They're using this setting as a testing ground. Now, if this works and this book is taken and received well, and it's built in such a way that it appeals to players and dungeon masters, and they use it, and it gives you enough information you can run your own adventure, then I think it's going to be a really good idea. Okay, all right, I've said it. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to get to the questions and answers side of this. But hey, look, if you found this helpful or informative in any way, please share and like the video. Subscribe if you want more content like this, because I know I've been away a long time, but I will do more content. So subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when I go live, and I will be going live a lot. And when I publish a new pre-published video, when I'm not going live, I will publish some stuff that isn't live, don't worry. Look, you supported me by watching this. I appreciate the number of people who turned out to watch today. That's really awesome. Thank you very much. Also too, if you want to support me, I don't do Patreon, okay? I don't like the idea of people paying me to do content on YouTube, because then I am expected to produce a particular product. But I do have affiliate links down in the description which you can check out. Now, if you have questions, we're going to go to the live chat right now, so stick around. We'll have a chat. Otherwise, if you're not part of the live chat, you can just put on your comments down below. What do you think of Ravnica? What's your response? Was this helpful in some way? What do you want to add to this? Are you hopeful for this, or are you concerned? I really hope that I have alleviated some of the fears and frustrations you might have had, because I honestly think they're going to do a pretty good job with this. Do I think that there's going to be repeat material from other books or unearthed arcana? Absolutely. I think there is definitely going to be repeat material. You can be guaranteed of it, but there'll be new stuff as well. And anyway, hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Alright, I'm not gone, and I'm going to try to be brave about this. I do have some good news. Hi there. All right. So I had some stuff stolen, as a lot of you know, and I had planned to come back into the fold and start doing live streams. Things are looking better. Christmas, my family are going to sort me out. They're going to look after me. So you don't need to keep being concerned about that. Probably most people know about that from the video I live streamed briefly and from my Facebook group, and a lot of my friends know about it as well. But they're going to look after me. I mean, I won't sort out everything that I lost, and it certainly won't sort out the fact that I'm carless and I'm borrowing somebody else's car. But yeah, let's get to Ravnica. I think that's the most important thing. So let's have a look at the chat. Matthew, nope. Hopefully you were able to join us, Matthew, even if you couldn't get in straight away. Greetings from Argentina. How's it going, Mario? Hopefully you're still in the chat. Who else have we got here? Cap. Is it Carp? Megnodon? How's it going? You've got quite a few. Magic the Gathering art is pretty great. It is. And it also means that if they decide to marry Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and have a bit of spillover, that you can expect quite a lot more art for Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of the art is probably going to be really high quality. Look, we're already getting high quality art for Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but more of it, is that a bad thing? I think that's a good thing. Okay, what's this? Texas Survival. Howdy from Texas. Still bummed about your stuff getting stolen. Look, it happens, man. I'm not the only one. There are lots of people it happens to, and I've decided I just need to come back and do stuff and focus on something. If the cameras in my computer got stolen and my microphone, then it would really be bad. But it's not. It isn't. It's going to be all right. Not everything got stolen. Just the stuff I was not really. Yeah, the key stuff I use all the time is gone. That's the upsetting bit. Okay. All right. So inventions. Yes. An invention wizard. I think something like that is coming from. Look, they haven't included the Artificer, as far as I know, in the Eberron stuff, and I want to talk about Eberron, but not today because they keep releasing stuff. So because of that, I think it's better that I leave that for another day. And I think in about a week's time, Keith Baker will have unloaded a good portion of information and I'll have something to talk to. But we'll stick with Ravnica for now. But I think you can expect something in the book that will allow you to do that. Even if it's a new school of magic or sorcery or something like that that you can tie in. Or even one of the guilds giving you aspects or the ability to manipulate machines and magic in some way. I think that's highly likely. Yes, exactly that. The woman on the cover is exactly that. You're right. How's it going, Joseph? Hi. Hopefully you're still in the chat, and I didn't forget about you. I am trying to get through everybody. Dutch. What's this? Dutch Hoothen. I like it. I like the name. Am the only one who wants the D&D setting for Magic the Gathering now. Look, I don't think you're the only one. I think there's probably other people who wanted it. So you're not the only one. I just think that a lot of people are quite surprised and shocked by this. Ravnica is going well. I'm sure it will. Oh, yeah. Look, I think if Ravnica goes well, I think we'll see more setting books that are a mixture of settings and story, adventure, with enough tool pieces that you can fit things together. Hopefully with maps. I think that's definitely going to be the case with Ravnica. In fact, it's going to be definitely the case with Ravnica. But hopefully they'll do that with all the other setting books that come out after this. And if you get that, it's only a short jump with enough information, enough fluff, enough background to be able to build your own stories. And certainly if they include things like adventure hooks and plot lines, that'll help a lot. Okay. What else have we got here? If it tests the water, I think that's exactly what it is. I think it's trying to test the water to see how a setting book is going to work. Because in the past, their setting books have not gone great. They haven't sold a lot of them. and they're often still available for purchase as a first printing many years later, and that's not what they want. They want to be able to cash in and get their books published and purchased so that they don't have to concern themselves with having a dud. I mean, if they go back to having something like another Dungeons and Dragons 4E, they will be very upset because things have been going pretty well so far. Okay, Joseph, what do you got here? Eberron art is taken from old books. Yes, I know. I will talk about that, Joseph. You're right. The new Eberron PDF that you can get from the Guildmaster's Guide, Dungeon Masters Guild, and from D&D Beyond. Yes, they have taken a lot of art. I did notice that myself, which is why I didn't want to talk about Eberron today, because I think it's more important that we focus on that on another day. And I will show you all of that stuff because I have a lot of I do have the Eberron Dungeons and Dragons 4E book, the campaign book. Okay, I don't have the 3.5, but I do have the 4E. All right. What else we've got here? Dutch. What do you got here? I think most of the things in the book will be from Magic the Gathering Plane Shift Supplement. It could well be. I know that they released something for Magic the Gathering that was supposed to be sort of allowing you to tie in your D&D game in some way. I don't know. We won't know until November. How's it going, Carlos? How are you? All right. Okay, so that seems to be pretty much it. I think we've wrapped it up. There don't seem to be any more questions. I've caught up with every comment. I've tried to respond to everybody. If I have not responded to you and acknowledged your existence, it is not because I haven't tried. Okay, I would like to think that I'm still small enough that I can get through the chat box. Fortunately, I am. Okay. All right. So I think what we'll do is we'll leave it there, and you can rewatch this if you want. By all means, an opportunity to leave comments down below later on once it's published by YouTube. But don't freak out. Stay positive. I think it's actually going to wind up being a really good book, even if it doesn't seem like it initially. It's going to be one of those Shankshaw redemption sort of situations, I suspect. Okay, all right, so I'm going to sign off. I'll let you guys have the rest of your day. I should be going and doing something else. And you guys be well.